You're here, Baruch Hashem. Good. Okay, yeah. We're on page.
Melvin, which city? Which city in Germany?
In Cologne.
Cologne.
Lahavde, like Chulon. Anyway, okay, let's learn. Page 211. So, in yesterday's shir, the Rebbe took a piece of Tanya that we learned, chapter 1 in Tanya, the end of chapter 1 of Tanya, and he cites the Arizal that every Yid has Neshamos, 2 souls, not just one, because the pasuk says V'neshamos ani osisi. It doesn't say V'neshama ani asa ani osisi. Why the plural? So Reb Chaim Vital in Shara Kedusha writes, this implies that every Yid has two souls. But the Alter Rebbe, after quoting the verse V'neshamos, he says Shehein shtei nifashos. You look that up in Tanya, you'll see exact language. He changes from the word neshamos as it appears in the pasuk to nefashos, which is the language in the Tanya. It just dawned on me whether that's also the language of the Arizal. I would venture to say, of Reb Chaim Vital, I would venture to say not, but it has to be looked up. It would be interesting to see if the Alter Rebbe is the one that makes the change from the Shamois to Nefashos, or already the Reb Chaim Vital did it. That would be interesting. Maybe, Hillel, when you have a chance, look up in the Chassidus Muva'eres, because they, I'm sure, point out this difference. See if they give a citation on this difference to earlier.
You mean in chapter 1 of Tanya?
Yes. Okay. Chapter 1, the last half of the chapter. And the reason why the Alter Rebbe brings the difference between the shamos and the fashos, again, in English, we translated the same word, souls, 2 souls. But in the Hebrew, there's a very specific difference based on Kabbalah and Chassidus. And the difference is that the nefesh, the word nefesh, denotes the vivifying, activating power that gives koyach to the body in a practical way. Whereas the word neshama refers to the more spiritual aspect of the soul that is its essence. So we have neshama referring to the essence, more of the essence, I'd say more of the essence, and nefesh referring more to the practical side of the animating the body. You all know that there are 5 levels to the neshama. This is brought in Kabbalah. Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechida. The acronym of which is Naran, Nun Reish Nun, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Naran, Chay, Chaya, Yechida. And the general explanation, 1 second please, the general explanation is, Nefesh refers to Maaseh, to action. Ruach refers to emotions. Neshama refers to Seichel. Chaya refers to Ratzon and Tainug, willpower and pleasure power. And Yechida refers to essence, Yachid. Yes, Hillel.
Just this pasuk that we quoted yesterday, Neshamos ani asisi, that we're talking about, where is it from? Where's the pasuk from?
I believe you look it up. I believe isn't it Eiv? Is not Eiv Yaakov? Do you know? You can look it up. 1, 2, 3. But in Sefaria or whatever, I think it's Eiv. I think.
Okay.
Oh, actually, Chelik. Sorry, no. Chelik Elakami Mal is Eiv. So I'm not sure.
Yeah. So are you saying that that pasuk is quoted in the first chapter of Tanya?
Yes.
Okay.
And the quote taken from Shara Kedusha, from Reb Chaim Vital. Remember you asked me about that? Right, so it's from there.
Pasuk Yeshaya.
It's a pasuk in Yeshaya. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So you heard Hillel the answer? It's a pasuk in Yeshaya.
Got it.
Okay? So, and why does the Alter Rebbe, Yoni, why does he change? I just explained to you that the fact is, either he or the Reb Chaim Vital changes language. He changes from the word used in the pasuk. The question is why? And the answer is because here the Alter Rebbe in chapter 1 in Tanya, and the Frierdiker Rebbe here in this Maamar cites it in this paragraph, is looking to explain the driving force of a soul associated with a body. He's not talking about the soul in its own state. So since he's looking to explain the driving force of the body and everything that comes along with the body, i.e. character, the midas, therefore he says shehein shtei nefashos. You all heard me and understand? That's why he makes the change. If he was talking about the aspect of the neshama as it's in its own right, in its own place, in its own domain and idea, he would keep the word neshama. But being he's talking about a nefesh habamis and a nefesh elokis, he's talking about that aspect of the soul of the neshama that vivifies and activates the person in certain behaviors. Therefore, he changes from the neshamas to nefashos. So that's one important idea that when we learn Hasidus, many times you won't find this distinction. I would say most times. But in Tanya, at the end, in this section, chapter 1, it's very clear the distinction. So yes, overall, when you learn a Maamar Hasidus, or maybe and also other places in Tanya, the words are kind of interchangeable. Nefesh and neshama, neshama and nefesh. Right? Well, in other words, Moshe, why don't we call the nefesh elokis neshama elokis? Or neshama habahamis. We don't use the word neshama for elokis and bahamis. We use the word nefesh. Yes, Moshe.
I just want to ask, because this is very fresh in my mind. When we were at the Ohel yesterday, so it said the Manolashon, so that's something that is used a lot in the Manolashon, like nefashos, neshama, and I was actually asking myself the same question yesterday.
Right. Are you referring to that tefillah that we say before we read the pan, the pigeon?
Yeah.
You're not referring to the section of Zohar that they have, which we read later. If you get to that,
no,
right?
No, I think it's
right. So I don't know the exact wording now, but I believe I know. I think I know what you're talking about, but the wording exactly I don't remember. Again, there you're standing at the tzaddik, at the Rebbe's oil, or for that matter, any oil, and you want to bring. The tzaddik should bring your tefillas to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to help you practically. So the word nefesh, I think, is a very, nefesh implies the practicality. That's the point. Neshama defines and refers more to the spirituality. So in other words, you have the spirituality within the spirituality, and you have the physicality or the in the spirituality. So when you're standing and asking for refuah, for shidduchim, for parnasa, for success in business and learning, and you want to identify with that aspect of the tzaddik's neshama, so that the conduit is the right one. Because if you go through the wrong conduit, it might take you a longer time to get an answer. Which, by the way, is one of the reasons why sometimes we ask ourselves, I daven, I mispalel, I pray, and the bracha is taking a long time to come. if you're honest with yourself, it could be you used the wrong channel. That's why you have to be very, very keen and sharp and to make sure that you use the right channel for the right bracha. Yes, there is an overall bracha. Okay, but from overall brachas, we get overall results, which is general. We want, as we say in good old English, in the bank. We want it, exactly for what we need, right? Now, we also have stories in Chazal and in Jewish literature and lore that sometimes we ask for a certain bracha, and the Eibishter, who knows best, basically gives us another bracha, not in the area that we asked for, because he knows best. So that's another issue. That's already a metaphysical issue of reincarnation and Gilgul and other aspects. And we know the stories, with the tzaddik or the Baal Shem Tov, whoever said to them, what would you want to have? You came for children, you came for parnasa, would you rather have that or children if they were childless? There are such mises. And the idea, if you take it out of the story realm, and you look at it from the philosophical realm, it makes a lot of sense. Because the idea of tapping into the right energy at the right time is a very, very important thing. I've said this many times, and I will say it again and again. L'cha Hashem eis ratzon. To you, Hashem is the auspicious time. You know the auspicious time when whatever I should get at what time. And what we daven for is that we should have the schus, the merit. We say the matoivu every morning before we daven, to tap into the eis ratzon. But the eis ratzon is a very, very specific thing, and that's why the story, of course, which we've also shared in 1953 Purim, where the Rebbe said, those that want a bracha for ashiros, for wealth, should raise their hands, and only 3 Hasidim at the Farbrengen raised their hand. And the Rebbe said afterwards, you were all Hasidim shaitim, foolish Hasidim, because there was an eis ratzon, and because of your Hasidishkeit, you were too embarrassed to raise your hands. Money, you're asking money to daven better, to learn better. And the Rebbe said that. And those 3 Hasidim that raised their hands in front of everyone became very, very wealthy. We know who they are. We know the real estate that they own, and we know the tzedakah that they give, or some of it. That's a fact. So there, when there's an eis ratzon, don't squander it. You have to have the seichel. Now, the flip side I want to say is, where most of the Hasidim were coming from was from a healthy place. Although the Rebbe called them foolish Hasidim, the Rebbe says that and has to say that, and it's true. But from their perspective, their modesty didn't let them raise their hand. It wasn't that they're, so why is the Rebbe calling them foolish Hasidim? Because not every day does a tzaddik reveal to you what's going on in heaven. And here it's Purim, and the Rebbe reveals, actually it was 1958, sorry, not 1953, I think. Anyway, the Rebbe reveals kind of that there's an opportunity, so put aside your own Hasidishkeit and modesty. But again, a tzaddik, a Rebbe says that. The Chassid, if he feels this humility, he has a right to say, I don't feel it, So I don't see it as a contradiction, but that's what happened. Yes, Hillel, sorry.
2 things. One, I found the reference that you said. So this line is an exact quote from the Tanya, and then I want to say what the Chassidus Mebuera says about it.
Okay.
So it says, "Uksiv v'neshama saniasisi shehem shtei nefasha." So that's a direct quote from the Tanya.
No, I know. My question was if it's a direct quote from Shara Kedusha.
Okay, so...
I mean, that section in Tanya is citing Shara Kedusha, Rab Chaim Vital.
Does not seem to be the case, no, because the quotes end Yeah, does not seem to be the case.
Right. That's what I thought.
But the Chasidus Mevueres explains the change as follows: Shtei haneshamos hashochenes ba'adam, the two neshamas that dwell within a person, kol echad mehem ish nefesh shlema b'fnei atzma. Each one that will be is a complete nefesh unto itself. Im kol prate hakokos, with its own defining powers, achushim v'akishronos v'nidrashim la'adam, like a full body of impulses and senses and talents, l'chayot es chayav kedavai, to like take over and rule the person.
Okay, right. So what's...
Yeah. I just thought it was a good explanation of that. And I wanted to share with you a quick story on this, the idea of the Eis Ratzon. That when I met the Strepkova Rebbe, Shlita of Yerushalayim, lives in Givat Shaul, I told him that I was a Stretner Einikel. He told me the following story. He said that once one of the Rebbes of Rizhin visited the Stretner, and the Stretner Hasidim were famed for being kind of amongst the poorer Hasidim. So the Rizhiner says to him, "Why don't you do something to help out your people?" He said, "I try, but what can I do? Let me show you what happens." So he goes outside in the base medrash, he gives a clap, and he says, "Now is an Eis Ratzon. If anybody wants the Rebbe to daven for them, anything you want from Shemayim is open." So all the Hasidim run to bring a kvittel, and the Rebbe's there look at the kvittel, but not one of them was for wealth. Not one of them was for anything begashmius. They were all baruch. He said, "What can I do? They don't have."
Yeah. It reminds me also when the Rebbe wasn't well after his heart attack in 1978. So there was a very big dispute amongst the Hasidim several years later, and he started to give out dollars later and different things, whether you should stand on line and take his time up, or make the line go quicker by many less people going up to get the dollars. Uh-huh. And this was a heated debate amongst Hasidim, And I saw some very prominent Hasidic Jews. They went up and they argued, when a tzaddik gives, take it. Take it. Yeah. Don't play your Hasidishkeit now. And others felt this is, it's his health. Have mercy on his health. Why you make him stand on his feet after a long day of the Ohel, not eating anything and just drinking? Why are you doing that? And it was an ongoing thing. But the Rebbe, from his perspective, I could tell you, numerous times he criticized sometimes his secretaries, sometimes some Hasidim. Why are you playing these games and not allowing people? Sometimes they tried cutting the line off, and so that people know more. And somehow the Rebbe found out about it, and he really chided them. What right do you have to do that? They're coming to me, not to you. And the Chassid or Chassidim, whoever it was, didn't say anything, but the answer was obvious. We care for your health. Yes, Yaakov.
The idea of Eis Ratzon.
Yeah.
So in halacha we know there's different zmanim that are Eis Itos Beratzon.
Right.
Nates, Mincha, Purim, Kippur, different times of the year. Shana Rabbah, different times. So if we team up this keenness that you're talking about of how to channel a bracha, what we need, and it's that halachic Eis Ratzon, so you've got a triple header, I would have
Absolutely. Right. What Yaakov's saying is true, that, there are certain zmanim kfuyim, set size in our calendar based on Chazal, that are Eis Ratzon just, but I was talking more about, the other times. And even then, I do want to say this, Yaakov, that even if something is an Eis Ratzon, it's an Eis Rotzen if you're in the Rotzen. If you're not in the Rotzen, it can be an Eis Rotzen, and it's a waste. It's not pshat automatic. There's no automatics in Yiddishkeit.
No, that's for sure.
You know, there's no automatics. Okay.
I don't understand you, Rebbe.
What?
I don't understand you. That we have the famous story of the guy who goes up to the Aron and he puts down the olive base and he says, "Hashem, you Masadu the olive base took pretty much fields." I don't know if this would go.
Right.
Yeah?
Right.
You tell me it has to be Azoi Punkt, and Azoi says, where did all this where did the specificness come from?
Okay, so see that what you're referring to, and the famous story, the Baal Shem Tov, with the Baal Shem Tov, the Shpolo Zayda, one of the tzaddikim who hired someone to be the Baal Tefillah, and he had the kavanas all written down, Pi Arizal, and then he lost the paper, and he blew shofar anyway, and the Rebbe said to him, it was the holiest and the best blowing of shofar I ever heard. But he said, "Rebbe, I forgot the kavanah." He said, "Exactly. It wasn't from a script, it came from your heart." That's that's the transcendence. On that there's no shilas, there's no questions. A Yid davens to the Eibishter with his full heart, anytime, anywhere, it's getting in. That's a different darga, that's a different experience. I'm talking about not that darga. So yes.
You're talking about being a scientist.
Yeah. Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, kind of figuring. Like being a scientist. Yeah, along the lines of being more calculated, the more figuring out what's the right time to get in. Like Shavuos morning, it says right. You should go in the morning when there's the shchut shel chesed, the thread of chesed shines in the world. Then you should go into the mikveh then. That's like a scientist, and it's true. It says in our Kabbalah, you believe that? It's a Zman, it's Eis Rotzen. But that's a calculation. That's like preparing for the shofar with the kavanas. And I would say that both are needed, or like you said, a triple header, or all three are needed, you know what I'm saying? It's not that one contradicts the other, but there's no question that the highest, the best, and is the uncalculated heart, complete surrender to the Eibishter. You talk to the Eibishter face to face, direct, and no conditions whatsoever. Nothing beats that. And we have numerous chazal and stories. Well, Reb Elazar B'Durdaya, what do you need more? The Gemara, right? Yoni, the Gemara, Reb Elazar B'Durdaya, the Gemara says he was such a sinner. Every Aveir in the book he did. And the Gemara says that he did tshuva go and he cried and he screamed and he died on the spot. And Rebbe says Reb Elazar B'Durdaya is in Gan Eden. He went from being the biggest sinner to Gan Eden. What's the explanation? What? He bought Olam Haba, the quote from the Gemara, the Yaakov's quote. He bought Olam Haba instantaneously in a moment. What happened? Because he tapped in on that moment somehow to this unconditional tshuva that got him smack in. So the question is better than the answer. The question is better than the answer. And with this thought process, it answers a lot of things, at least I think, like the story I've told you, don't be shaking the hand of the murderer who's sitting in solitary confinement in the Los Angeles jail. And then when I shared the story with Balabatim at Shalosh Shudis in the Los Angeles Young Israel of Melrose, they wanted to eat me up. They were so upset with me. How can you give a murderer known as the Israeli mafia? How could you give them your hand? And the truth is, I wasn't thinking. And Baruch Hashem that I wasn't thinking. In other words, I did it because it's genuine. You see a yid, you say Shalom Aleichem. And I, of course, I didn't know. But in a way, I'm saying is that so their question is a good question. in logic and in seichel, and like Yaakov says, in science, it's a very good question. What business do you have giving such a yid your hand when he's a murderer? But then there is beyond science. So I think that we're going off on a tangent a little bit from the text, but it's a very important idea to really understand when we deal with ourselves, with family, with friends. And I saw this by my father-in-law's relatives who were communists, some of them. Communists. And I saw the way they came to America, and he dealt with them like he's with the greatest love, like a brother and sister. And it amazed me, because there was a certain level of connection that goes beyond all the sins and all the trouble and all the nonsense, And that's a place we have to get to, especially now. We're 3 weeks coming closer to the 9 days, The real Avas Yisrael, we throw around that word, those words, unconditional love, If to really practice it, it's a very hard thing to practice. At least for me, it's a very hard thing to have unconditional love and to love everyone because they're a yid, even if you disagree with them. That's an avodah. It's a big avodah. So that's the lesson. Let's continue now. Page 211, the second paragraph. The nefesh hashenis hi chelek elika mimah mamash. This is from Tanya as well. The second nefesh that every yid has is an actual divine part. It's a part of God, of divinity. Dichsiv, as it says, ki chelek Hashem amoy. For a part of Hashem, amoy is his nation. Meaning that every yid who's part of the Jewish nation has a chelek Hashem. And now he says in Yiddish, the Neshama von a yid is a chelek. Yoini, the soul of a yid, the Neshama of a yid is a part of God. We have a shtick, in Yiddish the word shtick, a shtick getlichkeit, a part of godliness in ourselves. Mishem Havaya, from the name of God, the tetragrammaton, the name of 26, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Kumash Kosov, as it says, Vayipach bi'apov, he blew within his nostrils, Nishmas Chayim, a living soul. And it also says, V'ato, and you, Nofachta bi, have blown within me. U'kumeshinemer b'zoyar, and the Zoyar comments on that verse, Man de Nofach, the one who blows, who exhales, mitoicha yenofach. It's coming from first inhaling. It's coming from very deep within himself. He exhales, gives out. This is all quoted in the second chapter of Tanya in the beginning. Perush, the Zohar says, the Alter Rebbe says, mitoicha yusay, from his toch, from his inside. Umipnimi yusay. What does it mean? Mitoicha yusay, inside, from the pnimius, from the what?
Kishkis.
I don't hear you. What?
Kishkis.
Oh, from his kishkis. Yeah. Umipnimi yusay, from his essence, his inside. So that kind of ends the citation from Tanya chapter 2. Now the Frierdiker Rebbe elaborates. We see in actuality, in man's nature, you can't compare the air that comes out from your heart when you speak or when you sing a song. You can't compare that with as it comes out when you blow. Takes a lot more energy to exhale and blow. Why? Because it comes more from the pneumius. So we have, by the way, 3 stances. Velvel. We have speaking, we have singing, and we have blowing. Speaking, you can speak all day, you won't get tired. You speak. Singing, you can sing also a lot. Not as much as you get tired after a while, but not as much as speaking. And to blow, it knocks you out pretty quickly. And in actuality, we see, says the Rebbe, that the very essence of man's essence within, he exhales it, it comes out when he blows with koyach. This is the mashal, the parable. Kach al derech mashal nishamas Yisrael soul. Now let's go to the moral Yiddish souls. He's explaining now more of that section in Tanya. Nishmas Yisrael, the Jewish souls, olo b'machshava. Where do they come from? From God's thought. Remember yesterday we spoke about the difference between thought and speech. The Alter Rebbe in chapter 1 cites the concept that neshamas, Jewish souls, don't come from the deeper of Hashem, from God's speech, metaphorically speaking. They come from God's thought, machshava. Kidichsiv, as it says, B'ni b'chayru Yisrael, my son, my firstborn Israel. Bani matem l'Hashem elikechem, you are children to God. Perush, this means, just as a son, a child, it comes from the brain of the father, kach kaviyachol, so metaphorically speaking, nishmas kol Yisrael, the soul of every Jew, nimshecha is drawn, me machshavtoi v'chochmosei yisbara, from God's thought and wisdom, blessed be He. The iu chakim, for Hashem has and is the virtue of chokhmah, but b'v'loi b'chokhmah yediyah, we cannot fathom and understand God. So in other words, God's chokhmah is not our chokhmah. That's what it means. The iu chakim, He is chakim, from the word chokham, but v'loi b'chokhmah yediyah, not in the type of chokhmah that's understandable, because we understand chokhmah. That's not the type of chokhmah God has. Yes, Hillel.
I think that's a direct quote from the Sach Eliyahu.
Yes, it is. Shehi chokhmah datzilas. So what is the type of chokhmah yonis that Hashem has? So the Alter Rebbe says, this is what we call chokhmah di atzilus. V'yedua the chokhmah de bria yitzira asiya nikras chokhmah yediyah. The Rebbe says, the chokhmah that's associated with the worlds of creation, formation, and action, we call knowable chokhmah, chokhmah yediyah. Because it lends itself to comprehension by the creatures of the worlds of creation, formation, and action. Aval chokhmah datzilus, but chokhmah from the world of Atzilus, the first and highest of the four worlds, we call that type of chokhmah lo yediyah, no knowledge, beyond knowledge. Shahanivroyim eina masigim zois, creatures, i.e., from creation ex nihilo, cannot fathom and understand and relate to that chokhmah with their seichel, with their intelligence, each on their level. Umisham, and it's from that place of chokhmah datzilus, who shayrish nishmas kol ish Yisrael, the source of every soul, every Jewish soul. And that's why, Yonason, that's why we compare the connection between the neshama of a Jew and Hashem to breathing, to blowing, because it's so deep within. And so just as the difference, Moshe, between speaking, singing, and blowing, breathing, so too is the difference between the souls of Jews and all other neshamas and all other creations. Malachim, forget about non-Jews, talking about malachim, angels. Who? Everyone says, I have an angel helping me. Take your angel. I don't need an angel. I got a soul. I got a neshama. So, yeah, okay, angels help us at times, and it's always good. I still like what you said, the triple header. It's always good to have an angel on your side. But we have something greater than an angel, a neshama. I can't hear you, Hillel. You're saying things, but I can't hear you. I don't know. Okay, weiter. Okay, we'll stop here. V'zehu. We'll continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem. Bottom of 211. Any questions? Yes, Moshe.
Yeah, Rabbi Dov, would you say, just based on what we just said, I've heard this many times before, but could you just elaborate on it for a second? When we say that the neshama has a nitz,
a chelek eloka mimal mamosh, a nitzutz eliki.
Right, but when I talk about as in like netzach, like eternal.
No. Netzach and nitzutz are two different words.
Oh, right. Netzach means like victory.
Netzach means victory, and that's another aspect, but it's not what we're talking about right now. No.
So, but getting back, do we say that the Jewish neshama is eternal? I mean, I've heard that before. I'm not really sure what that means exactly.
Okay.
Is that relevant?
It's not relevant here. It's relevant, but not relevant here. But basically, just briefly, anything that's a creation, or in the language of the Frierdiker Rebbe, anything that lends itself to understanding is by definition, what's the word I'm looking for? By definition, self-ending. If you have a beginning, you have an end. If you have an end, you have a beginning. Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah, Bria, Yesh Mi'ayin, Ex Nilo means there's a creation. So the neshama, from that perspective, has a beginning. So it has an end. If it has an end, it's not eternal. But the neshama, the yid, comes from the chokhmah datzilus, which in this scenario means it comes from eternity. It comes from a place that's beyond creation. That's what I'm explaining, Moshe. That's why That's why only the neshama is eternal. And by the way, this also, I don't know if you were at the shir when we spoke about the difference between Plato, Aristotle, and the Jewish belief. This taps right into that whole discussion. Why did they conclude that when the body dies, the soul goes with it? Because to begin with, their version of a soul is not of Chochmah Datzilis. Their version of a soul is from Bria and down. So when you talk about Bria and down, when the creation ends, i.e. when the body dies, the soul goes with it. Because to begin with, their type of soul is not the soul of the Alter Rebbe, and explaining here in Tanya, which is Chochmah Datzilis, which transcends. Meaning it never, to begin with, it wasn't a creation. Do you understand? It's an amazing thought when you think about it, that Hashem put within us an aspect of himself which is creator. In other words, our neshama is not creation, it's creator. And that chelik of creator, he put within us. It's an amazing thought. An amazing thought to think that I'm walking around with a part of Hashem. Not just metaphorically speaking. In other words, that neshama, the neshama of a yid, that's a chelek. That's why we call it velvel chelek eleka mimal. And the Alter Rebbe says, this is a chiddush of the Alter Rebbe, the word mamish. Chelek eleka mimal is a citation from a verse in Iyov. That's not the Alter, that's a pasuk. But the Alter Rebbe adds one word, mamish. What does mamish mean? It's tangible. That very neshama, that's a chelek eleka, Hashem in his infinite wisdom and ability puts it into us in a way that it's so tangible in the world that we live in. That's a chiddush. And only a creator can do it. So the creator put himself as a creator within us. That's moidendik. And that's why we can do anything and everything. There's no such a thing that a Yid can't do anything. He can do everything. Why? Because if you're looking at the Jew as a creation, you're right. I'm limited. I can't do it. But if you understand that a Yid is creator, as creator is within creation, the creator can do anything. So Hashem gave me a koyach to do anything for the sake of a God. Chevra, I know it's some deep stuff, but it's important, this is chassidus, to understand this, because the more you'll understand it, so many things in your life will open up and become clear. So spend some time, think about it, re-listen to the shir. We'll see everyone tomorrow. Sei gesund. Bye-bye.
Sure, thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Great.